My name is Donna, also known as Donna Janelle, CEO and founder of Parenting with a Purpose. Our strive here at the podcast is to reach every home, whether it's single moms, married, single dads, whatever it is, foster parents, whatever, just bringing the ownership and responsibility and nobility back into parenting. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. All parents need some help and guidance, and I'm just here to be a guide. Hey, welcome back to Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janelle, where I strive to bring back the responsibility and nobility and beauty back into parenting. As I say every week on the podcast, parenting is not for the weak. It's challenging. It'll have you laughing. It'll have you crying. It has you going in your prayer closet, have you go get your hands laid on, get some anointed oil on you. You trying to seek out something, because parenting is not for the weak, particularly if you have those terrible 2.5, 3s, and then you jump up into the early teenage years. Man, I'm telling you, we need to take a moment of silence just for the teenage years, because I'm telling you, that's the challenge that I'm in now with the two 16-year-olds and the 18-year-old. Challenging. Sometimes I question my parents, and matter of fact, I question my parenting all the time. Make me wonder if I'm doing something right. It can't be me. Why are they thinking like that? What's going on? That's exactly what I have a conversation every day in my mirror, seeing if it's something wrong with me. Because y'all know I keep telling you about that one that tests my inner gangster. Yo, she in it to win it. I'm telling you, she ain't letting up. She ain't letting go. And I'm not either. Sometimes I just want to let it go. But, you know, me being me, we go back and forth for a minute. And she being her, right? So tonight, though, pretty much all year we've been talking about, talking about the vision for the parenting. What is our vision in parenting? Because, if we don't have a vision, we're literally fall apart. Well, there's no structure, there's no strategy, there's nothing, right? So writing a vision for your family in the beginning of the year is so important, and sit down with the family and writing a vision together so that everybody knows and we're on the same team, right? I did that with my kids, but I'm telling you, we still ain't on the same team. Still not on the same team. Maybe we on the same team, they just don't know how to play their part right, okay? Maybe, yeah, okay, we on the same team. They just don't know how to play their part right, some of them. But nevertheless, we still wrote the vision together. They wrote their vision, and then we start talking about other things and as regard to how can we parent best. And I don't know if you guys recall, but this is part 2 of raising our black boys, our young black boys. We have Bryce Shelton and Savion Thompson here tonight. They were here early in January, and the conversation was so intriguing, so thoughtful, it was so provoking that I thought it would be smart to have them back out here again. Again, I think because for me, particularly being a female and raising a young black boy, I can't do it all. I can't teach him how to be a man. And there's some things that goes on in him that he doesn't even want to probably share with me because I'm the mom, right? So I think it's so important to have an open conversation with some young black brothers so that we can see what's going on in their mind growing. And they're not too far off the scale, right? They're not too old where they can say, well, back in the day, because they still kind of young. So we get like a fresh eyes, right? It's always good for a fresh eye. Yeah. So welcome back to the show, y'all. How y'all feel about coming back?
Feel real good. Thank you for having us back. Feel really good. Feeling good.
All right. So we're going to get into, we're going to talk about the last show. What did you guys think about the last show?
I think it went really well. It was I went back and watched it a couple times. It was, like you said, pulling out different things from different parts. I think it was very introspective to see the two sides in the same vicinity kind of having this receptive conversation. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't usually happen in different households. It's important to make space for those type of things. Yeah. It's really enriching.
I can definitely say we had a lot of fun. So it was definitely a lot of fun. And I even showed it to my mom, and she thought it was pretty cool too, seeing it from two different perspectives and stuff like that. So I had a lot of fun. I'm happy to be back.
Now, did you because you guys were primarily raised by your mom, did your mom, what kind of feedback, because we had touched some issues about being, made to be a man, kind of before you even know kind of who you were or whatever. did they touch any of those things? They had any questions, or was there any further conversation?
See, with my mom, it was a little conversation on her, but you know, she's kind of like, she's a little stubborn, you know, so she kind of stuck in the way. So she felt what I was saying, but she was like, nah, you know,
like I said what I said. You was taking the trash out. You was doing this. You was taking care of your siblings. This period.
Yeah,
that's
she's like, I understand, but nah.
Yeah. How about yours?
My mom, she was pretty proud of it. We've already kind of spoke about things as I've kind of saw how it related to me and our situation. I am at the point where me and my mom can like really sit down and talk about these different things and like where stuff came from and how different things affect like the present and then long-term type of stuff. She was overall really proud though.
Yeah. I think so. What a lot of people don't know, one of the reasons how I connected with you, Bryce, not only that I've seen you growing up in church, you know, but your mom came to me. You know, she watched my podcast, she heard about my podcast, and she actually said, this was in the making for over 6 months though, before you came on the show.
I remember when she first brought it to me, and I was like, that is cool.
Yeah, it was making for a while, because she was like, you know, like she was explaining to me some of the conversations that you guys had, and she thought that it would be very good for the world to hear your perspective, especially parenting, because she's learning, you know, through this whole process, and she was so open for it. And I thought that was awesome, because for a mom to say, hey, my young son has something to say, you know, especially when there has been some conflict and some trauma a little bit, even in the relationship of it, right? And still say, listen, I understand. I'm getting some understanding of what happened, and trying to, one of the statements of one of the shows that she, I think we were going to actually title, I was talking to your mom, and she titled The Undoing. Yeah, it was The Undoing, because she explained to me, you know, when you're raised a certain way, and tradition and generational, like you parent out of that way. And then when you realize, you know, with having a son like you, when you're able to have open conversations, and now the undoing what was being done.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was like a hot topic too.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
because I never heard, like we hear like, oh man, we got to fix ourselves, right? As parents, like, all right, we messed up a little bit, but not really having a conversation with our children. Like, listen, this is how I was raised. I apologize for this because I really did it out of ignorance, right? Because this is all I know. But having an open conversation to be able to say, listen, I messed up. I fixed this.
And
that's really hard to do.
That is what fixes it. Like, to say I want you to have a voice, even if it isn't what I would particularly like think of a conversation about this going. It really comes down to being open and like receptive to new things. And like me and my mom's relationship has really lots of conversations, just because even when I was a kid, I wanted to know my parents, like personally. I wanted to know, like, what were you doing when you were 20, this age? I was very curious. And you realize that a lot of adults kind of, as you get older, you get like certain curiosities or certain passions like beat out of you, whether it be through ridicule or people's opinions or physical things. And it causes people to kind of, instead of being like, oh, this person is ignorant to this, they take it on as like, oh, this is a me thing. So then it goes down the line, and a lot of fundamentalism as far as like when it comes to like the church and how it has been more of like a tradition like that, there's a lot of different ways that Christianity is being used. And when I was younger, church to me was the fellowship and the music. And at times hearing a preacher, because the first church I went to was not as clear as the one that it was very Methodist. It was very thou art.
Okay. You're like, what? We speak a whole nother language here, right?
Very old English. And even then, like, we're not English. So my thing was, it was like understanding how we used it and how it became like a thing that kind of circled around the development of like different families. And I think because certain churches can be so dichotomous, either you with us or it's like a complete. It's just the way certain things are.
Some what I realized in my years of living, right? It's not a lot. I'm much older than y'all. But even I feel like some organizations, church as an organization of a whole, some are more religious based and some are relationship based, right? And what happens is if you haven't grown up in a relationship based family, anything like that, it's kind of hard to understand the relationship with God, right? Because you haven't seen it. Like, you like relationships are mean, angry, ignorant, curse me out, love and hate is in the same sense, right?
And especially if like there's a situation where it's like your parent may hold certain like there's only a handful of approaches to self-expression that are good.
Right.
And it's only in this circle. And the human being has such a range of emotions and thoughts and ideas that it's kind of constricting to put people into that circle if that's not the way that they look at things. And it becomes more of like it becomes like a fear-driven
Right.
kind of indoctrination out of trying to bring security and safety and some type of level of maybe purity, community. But it's and like you said, like relationship based, like family. I also feel like it's more about having a personal relationship with God and figuring out what that means to you.
Right.
And understanding looking back in your life and seeing some of the things that were divine and kind of being like, oh, okay, I understand how like this was something I couldn't even think of, but it came out of this long kind of trudging journey beforehand.
Right. I think a lot of times, particularly when we look in the African American population culture, when we talk about, a lot of times people don't want to talk about religion or relationship with God, right? Yeah. Because traditionally, generationally, has left a huge scar on African Americans, right? Particularly Christianity, right? Definitely. You know, because the slave master used the word of God to So it kind of like, why am I going to believe this? Because this is what you've done to us, right?
Yeah. And the thing about that type of, because there's some Christians that believe that like black people are cursed because the sons of Ham, because but I feel like those things and the way, and you realize that people kind of pick and choose in the Bible with their own, what's it called? They're in their own ministries, and it's all like theology. Right. It's all like, this is my interpretation. So it is, like you said, it's very scarred, it's very strange. Yeah. Sometimes you're only learning from somebody's perception that is pretty far removed from you, and it like in the process of engaging with that for a long, long time, you slowly start to form that bubble around yourself, around self-expression, around what you may deem as fulfilling. And I've seen it like in many different families, like it's
I
just
think sometimes, as from a parent perspective, as a mom, especially like at least for me, and there's a lot of other parents that I talk to, and when it comes to religion, relationship, whatever faith they are, it's all out of love and pretty much saving our children, making sure that they don't go down the wrong path. If like, because if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for everything, not even just anything, everything, right?
Everything.
So I know really early in my Christian life, I was so like rigid, right? Because I just was like, listen, I don't want this to happen to my kid. I don't want that to happen to my kid. And I literally was like so restrictive in their living where, like I see it now. I'm not as much now that I have the, I felt like my oldest daughter, she went through so much so that the younger kids could kind of benefit from her, right? Yeah, like,
I know that.
Yeah.
I've seen like the eldest daughter and like it's
and you think that they think that you're spoiling the rest of the kids. No, I learned from you, just so you know. I learned what not to do. So now I'm not as restrictive my parent. I mean, my goal is to make sure they have a personal relationship, but I'm no longer so restrictive. It was like you have to do A, B, and C in order to please God, because that's not even what the word says. Like, so teach me understand it a little bit better is I'm able to teach my children relationship and things better, because even early in my walk, like I restricted myself for so much, just because of what I thought and what I heard, right? I remember when I was very, very young. Now, my parents, separated very early, but I do remember, if I recall, maybe about 5 or 6 years old, we had went to a church, and my dad, he was in the church, and my mom went. And actually, the pastors was cousins of ours. And I'll never forget this. And this what made me, I was so scarred by this, y'all. My older sister, she had highlighted, well, actually, they didn't have highlighters back then. She had wrote in the Bible, like she had made, like a line, underlined in the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. She got the beating of her life.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you don't ever write in the Bible. Yeah. And I'm saying, but the Bible's sitting on the table, open, ain't nobody touch it till Sunday. But that's what I'm saying in my mind, right? I'm thinking that, and I just never forget, because I just was like, yo, she got in trouble for trying to understand more, like underlining and things like that. And that was something. So that's when I seen when I was a kid. And then, then I didn't go to church or anything like that until I became much older. But even that right there sometimes scars our kids. Just, and I think it's based on what they've learned, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, even with like me and him, like we met at Christian school. Like we didn't even, so it was like a thing with us when we was little. Like we didn't even get to learn anything else besides that, because we were just born, and then I just see him at Christian school. It was just, we never learned anything else besides that. And then we were going to church and pretty much every day of the week at one point. But when we would go back home, it wouldn't be like, it wasn't like the same stuff that you were preaching in church, so it would kind of throw us off, you know what I'm saying? But then I see like a lot of people now our age are starting to get back with their relationship with God, because they went through the same type of experiences when they were younger.
Right. It's like you say one thing and then you do another. Yeah, that's kind of pretty much the whole parenting thing too. It's like, out in the public, you better do this, and there you get home.
Because it's like, it's like now, like I remember younger when if you couldn't even talk in church. Besides, like you getting beaten when you get home. But nowadays, I'll go to church and like people got their phones out and stuff.
Man, they got iPads.
People
I remember a long time
like
ago.
on Instagram and stuff. And I'm like, dang, like I'm scared to put my phone out. And my aunt not even here no more.
I remember
like,
years
I still don't want to put my phone out in church.
I remember years ago, no cell phones, no iPads. Now I look, all the kids got iPads. They got headphones and stuff. Now I'm still the mom that my kids ain't getting none of that stuff in church, because I've seen.
And honestly, they need that. I feel like
they need what?
They not have that attention. Yeah, need to not have it.
Like,
I thought you said they need that iPad. I was going to say, Bryce, hold up. Now we done. That they don't need the iPad or the phone in church, because kids listen and they hear.
Yeah. And they're sponges.
They're sponges. So I think that if we give in to them, I'm giving them an iPad, giving them. Listen, first of all, you're not touching my phone. My phone is a computer. Just a phone with a phone app, okay? It's a computer. Clearly, you're not touching my $1,800 phone. We just not doing that. Yeah. It's not a game, okay? It's just not a game. We're not doing that. But I see it time after time again. But I remember I never allowed my children to have any of the devices at church. And they were able, even at such a young age, to have a conversation with me about, because when you think they're not listening, they're actually listening, right? And even now, my son, who's very quiet and more shy, he deals with like a lot of social things, and he'll be on his phone. He uses it kind of as a tool so that he doesn't feel like somebody's watching him and things like that. But even to the point, I'm like, okay, even if you're using that, what you playing a game on it? That just ain't gonna work either. Like, so I think the ideas that we have as parents are really originally driven from how we were parented, what we seen. We had the conversation right earlier about food, clothes, and shelter. Yeah. And I brought you in this world, I'll take you out this world, right? Like, now, that sound crazy.
Yeah. But that's the thing.
And it's like Bill we talked Cosby, about on the last.
Arts reflect the times. Yeah. It wasn't like that just came out. That he grew up in that as well. That was just how it was. And I like how we talked like on the last episode. I feel like it all just trickled down from like slavery, because like you said, like even with the Christianity being brought into the slavery, and then now the whipping the slaves, and then now you go to church, and then you talked in church, now you're going home and you're getting beat, and it's like then that's another thing coming from the food, shelter, and clothes thing, like still from the slavery. It's like that's all they gave us was barely food, barely shelter, and barely clothes. So it's like
that's crazy. I have a conversation because the three younger ones I have, they very, very open and vocal, and they not, they try to be in their most respectful way. And sometimes I perceive it as being disrespectful, but that's not even their heart or their intentionality behind it. However, some of the stuff they say, like, delivery. They be like, that whole conversation of like, we the same people. No, I'm your mom. Well, basically this is a slave mentality here. Like, they said like they start talking about, well, that's when you actually, when it boils down to, it's like the master and the slave. You're like, damn. They start having these conversations. I'm like, no. But then in those conversations, though, I realized that you can't control anybody. Yeah. And as parents, though, we sometimes get frustrated that we can't control our kids, and then we start to hit them and beat them and realize that you still can't control them then.
that like, even to think that you have to control a human being, that idea sounds like
slavery. There you go.
So that's why growing up that's where that restriction comes from, because a human is born with aspirations and curiosities and stuff like that. Right. And you're socialized to kind of be drifted off this way and drifted off this way. I remember a lot of the anguish that I would deal with in like middle school was being around like people who were like, let me see.
It's a good way to put it.
Like, it's the conventional way, the conventional like manhood. It was very like,
that was a nice way to put it.
I like the conventional manhood.
It was in a nice way.
Dudes would get mad at you because like you weren't validating your manhood the same way. Right. And that's weird. It's like, I wish that it was, but that's like you get that idea, you get that ideology that like people should be like me, or we should all be a certain way. And it's because like not everyone goes back and looks on like, who gave me that definition, and where did I get that like nervous tick around these certain situations? And because really American society is so hustle and bustle, and not a lot of parents or people really. I'm still kind of getting, like, as I'm starting to work more, making a schedule for myself to kind of disassociate from work and like go from work mind to personal mind, because I see it's that whole, like I said, hustle and bustle. It's annoying, and when you don't want to bring that home. And I can imagine how it is trying to transition from that and like then tend to a child.
Yeah, me and him were just talking about it recently. We're like, man, I don't know. Like, I understand why my mom be a little angry. Like, I could do a long day of work and then come home and then it's like a kid there. I'm like, man, I do think that's definitely a lot to handle.
Right. And then as parents, we get into that dictatorship mode, right? We start telling them, I'm guilty of it, and I try my best to kind of work on it, of like not, understanding that even though my kids are in school all day and they could be tired, they could be, so saying that this better be done by the time I get home or whatever. And you know, the one that tests my inner gangster, she constantly challenging me. She's like, listen, I need a break. A break from what? I was at school all day. All right, you was on a bus for 30 to 45 minutes. I'm trying to understand why that wasn't enough break. But she has to come in the house and she has to get her she has to get herself together, right? Now the other kids can come in the house and do their chores right away, right? Not this one. And it's not even like this is just something she just started on. This is just her life. But for me, being that parent who says, from what I've learned growing up myself, listen, if I say something, you do it, right? And it wasn't so much of me. I would never dare talk back or say I'm not doing it or not have it clean by the time my mom got home, because there would be severe consequences, right? And when I say severe. So, but I mean, even to the point where if she came in the house in the middle of the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, every your dishes aren't done, you getting woken up. Not in a nice way, you get woken up. You know, you get woken up, you
that has happened before.
you gotta go handle your business. And as a parent now, and I'm just like, I didn't like it as a kid, but now I see sometimes, like, if I ask you to do something and that's all you had to do, and I come and it ain't done, like, wake up. Like, you had
like
you had enough time, you sleeping, that's why it's not done.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think
they don't be understanding the context.
Yeah. Now that we're getting older, I'm starting to notice it's like, granted, we are making money, but it's like, dang, I do kind of wish I was rather in school sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm like, dang, this is a long day of work. Yeah. I'm like,
it's
man.
I definitely understand that, and I remember we was talking about like children and parents being equal. I will say,
okay, I'm bracing my seatbelt on. I'm ready.
They are not equal.
Oh, you on my side.
But it's by default. You're an adult having a child. Of course, it's not going to be like equal intellectually,
right?
Maturely. Anything.
I think kids sometimes think that.
Kids that do it because they like kids. I mean, and I can't speak for everybody because my mom. I had like a bit of a traditional upbringing, but it didn't make me like one of the things I was talking to him about this in the car. Like my mom may have not have like supported this a certain aspiration because it may have not aligned with her values,
right?
But she also always encouraged me to be educated, always made sure I stayed on my education, and that affirmation, you can do anything you put your mind to. So every time I got into something that I was curious about, it kind of just rang true. But with kids, and I think there is I don't know. Like I was defiant at times, but that I was hurting inside.
Yeah.
It was a longing for a connection. It was a longing for understanding. It was a longing for just like that feeling of being connected. Like I never had a dog in the house, and sometimes you feel like you are sometimes you feel like you are having dinner with this married couple, or you're having dinner with this older woman, and it's like because the authoritarian at times, you grow up being set in this like, I am above you, I'm over top of you, and then there's parents that will want to be like buddies,
right?
When you get older.
It's like,
and it's like for most of our relationship, I only know you being a dictator. So right. I don't, and you even told me like you weren't one of my little friends.
Right.
So I never thought of any type of friendly interaction and I never was raised with that at all. It was do this, do that.
Right.
So the whole foundation of our environment is you telling me to jump here and jump there and how high and stuff like that. And it's, as a kid, I wanted to be in a more human relationship with my parents instead of like just being told that I should do things because something they feel. And I understand that like we want the best for our children, but I often see like I want the best for my children, but the idea that you're pushing that may be the best for them, like I feel like it should get a bit more reflection on how it aligns with the kid and how what they need, or just because, like I said, kids will show you stuff like, and I feel like art, it helps you understand yourself and help you see how you relate to the world. And there's so many different ones, and kids can find that for their own. But I know in the Black community, we push a lot of sports and a lot of entertainment.
Yeah, a lot of sports and entertainment,
like, so, and a lot of times, like, education is sometimes used as pain. Like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna make you read.
Oh, talk about that, Bryce.
And I got that, and I know it's gonna sound crazy. I got that from Dr. Umar.
Yeah.
I saw him doing an interview.
He be talking though.
Dr. Umar, my analogy with him is a broken clock is right twice a day. It was like sometimes he be good on like foundation, but sometimes he gets too theatrical.
Yeah.
But
that is good, because I think about, education was more used as a threat than actual.
And I'm gonna make you write 1,000 sentences, and that's okay, because now I got pretty good penmanship.
Right.
I don't mind that, but it was still draining. But that's the thing,
and that like leads to like I always want to talk about too, like with because like granted our parents did do that, because there was parents that didn't really care and wouldn't make their kids do that. And we were talking about, I think a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the school to prison pipeline, but it's like where like it's like every 3, I believe it's like 3 out of 4 kids that can't read are more likely to go to jail or end up on welfare. So that was like a crazy thing to me too, because I didn't really think about it until I really like thought about who in my class was like not excelling in reading and stuff like that, and where they are now. It lines up perfectly. So, it's kind of
and then that's why we press the issue about education.
Yeah,
so I think sometimes, as parents, like you said something earlier, I want to go back to it. You said parents want the best for our kids, and that we should be able to allow the kids to express themselves whatever way that, that they need to, pretty much.
As long as it's not harmful.
Yeah, as long as it's not harmful. But it's something that my mind hit, because even earlier in my parenting, it wasn't that I just wanted the best for my kids. I wanted the best for them that worked for me.
That's
usually how it is. That's usually how it is. That's
like
not just
this
you.
is what I want you to do in your life,
that's
and
not
this is
just
what.
you. Yeah, that ain't just you.
That's like
it's
like
like
an
majority.
ego thing.
Yeah.
It's like that'll validate my ego if I can look at my child, or I could be like, yeah, my kid is doing this. But the kid may be miserable keeping up this facade.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really look at the kid, because it's like, why are you being a bad kid, not validating my ego?
Yo, and then parenting, we don't realize that sometimes. I remember, again, my older daughter, I learned so much from her. And like I said, I think I mentioned before, she told me that we lived a porcelain lifestyle.
Porcelain, gotcha.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, it's almost like she cursed at me, say something like that. What you mean, a porcelain lifestyle? Like, but it was because, what? I'm like, so like fine china stuff? What we talking about?
No, ain't got no porcelain in here.
But in actuality, it was literally, you're creating this narrative, right? Externally, but not really dealing with it deeply internally. Like you're putting, I put her up on a pedestal, right? She achieved well academically, right? Because I pushed her. She used to say, "Mom, you my manager. You're a momager." Like, because I used to just like, and it wasn't because I didn't have that education growing up. Like, I've always strived for education, and I felt like education was always the key to get out of poverty and things like that, right? So I've always pushed education, because that's the only thing that I feel like I grabbed a hold of, because I didn't have like other things, emotional, stuff like that. So it's like,
writers say that.
It's like something I can control. Like I can control what I learned, right?
Okay.
So I had that on my daughter, and I wanted her to succeed so well, because I didn't see that around. So I'm like, I'm the one, first one went to school, became a nurse. So my daughter's gonna be the first one to do this. And my daughter, it was all ego. It was all, it really was. Now I look at it. I wanted the best for her, but I wanted the best for me.
Yeah, that's usually.
And that's what parents look at it sometimes. And now I don't do that. It's like, what you want to do? Like I told you, my one is about to go to Marines. For real? Okay. Like, because back in the day, I would never allow, listen to me, never allow my child to say that they were going to the Marines. What's wrong? No, you're going out here, you're about to be a doctor, a lawyer, because they're the things that I felt like was more successful, right? And success is different for everyone.
And I acknowledge that when you look at like the doctors, lawyers, stuff like that, like my my godparents were actually my godparents are my godmom's an English professor. My goddad is a math professor. Like he would tell me, back in Tuskegee, I used to sit and do calculus after school. Like he just loves math. That's not me.
Right.
And my mom would just be like, yeah, you can talk to your godparents. You can talk to your godparents. I like talking to my godmom about, because I love reading. So she put me on, she kind of was a big inspiration on like reading, and there's tons of African art everywhere. Cool. And my goddad, he's just real wise. He has a lot of like, I'd rather hear more about his stories as a person than math.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, I don't know, everybody finds what fulfills them sooner or later. And they may get somewhere in a couple years and be like, I don't like this, but at least they learned and they can go somewhere else and they don't have to kind of deal with that now. But you know, it's okay to chase curiosities. I think if you bring your child up engaging with their curiosities over and over again and letting them grow and branch out, they'll find their niche, they'll find what they like. So in their 20s, they can probably go gung-ho on like the top 3 ones or the top 5 ones, and whatever works, whatever doesn't. And I think people find their own way. Like there's enough people that want to be doctors. There's enough people, and that's the thing about society. Like because of ideas like that, there'll always be another doctor. There'll always be another lawyer. There'll always be some dentist. Like I remember when I was exterminating, I went to this person's house and the lady had her daughter was like, yeah, class of like 2038, I'm gonna be a dentist. Little girl in like 2nd grade. I'm like, you think she's gonna grow up? I mean, and she might. And she still might. But it's like, man,
it's like
you don't even know what you like to play with.
Right.
You don't even know like your favorite type of things. And I think it's just really just, and who knows, she may just be a very curious child about being a dentist. And that's
I think you learn like what you like. Like I think as a child, like she might have went to the dentist and felt like that was a great thing. Like
really cool,
I wanted to be a pediatrician because I love my pediatrician. She was a great pediatrician. She was kind. She was sweet. I remember, and I wanted a girl to be a pediatrician. I'm not a pediatrician, but I'm
Like
still
you
in
said,
nursing.
right?
I'm a pediatric nurse, right?
that was
So-
about her kindness. That was about her comfort. That was about the type of effect that you really wanted to have on people.
Yeah, and that's what I pulled away from that.
Exactly.
But I feel like our kids, as a parent, because now, I keep looking at it and I'm having conversations with kids and open conversations with other adults. And I feel like it is so crazy that how we as parents really want our children to live the life that we want them to. Like, it's one thing to say, I love you, I care for you. You could do anything you want to do, but within these couple things is what you need to do. Like.
And I've realized some of it is like, I want you to do this because if I was you in this situation with these resources, with these opportunities, that's what I would do. And that's cool, but you can't make that your child's thing. Yeah. And I think it's really hard for people to disassociate from that. But and I think one of the reasons why my mom was talking to me about, like, when I stopped looking at trying to be the best this for whoever, whatever, when I stopped caring about all that stuff, because I always had like a fight with it. Like I was always me, but every once in a while, like, just crazy stuff. Just like, I remember like having books and just not being like hyper occupied with like women and stuff like that. It was seen as like a homosexual thing. But what if I grew up in a family of women that I just like see as human beings, people that have raised me, people that have like it is and that's the thing, like it's the way, and that's the thing, you can't cover everybody's teaching in masculinity because a lot of it comes from school, from peers and stuff like that,
right?
And maybe sports, but it's just understanding like who your kid is and really checking in with that and seeing like how they feel about things, how they're reacting to the world, seeing what's on their mind, seeing what ideologies they have, and like you said, like not being so, oh, it should be like this, more so like if they say something that's out of line, well, why, where does that come from? How long have you been into that? Or things are
Definitely the questions.
Absolutely, just let it be a more of a curiosity. I was watching this. There's a guy I love on YouTube. His name is FD Signifier. He does video essays. Cool black dude, glasses, long locks, and he started a podcast not too long ago, and he was doing one where he was with another black father, and they were talking about black fatherhood, and he was saying like the other. I don't remember his name, but he's a pretty popular creator. Like he's bald, like a beard. He has 3 younger black children.
Black people. That's 9 out of 10 black men. Bald. Beard. What?
One of his sons' name is Uzi. It's like he has got like a couple African names. But
I'm like, who?
And
that's my cousin down the street. Like, what you talking about, right?
My dad.
Yeah, that's my dad. Like,
yeah, I have to find his name or something. But he was talking about being authoritative, having authority without being authoritarian, and it really and that was one of the things that he was talking about. Like if his son comes home from school, and he says it's called belief in fatherhood.
Okay,
that's his and he's really good at emotionally engaging his children, and he makes kind of like animated skits out of them. Like he'll add like pow and all this stuff and stuff like that. And but it's cool to see because like he was even saying like his children go to Christian schools, so he was like, and they pick up a lot of right wing ideology, and he'll come home. And his son will be like, well, we don't like them because they don't believe in our God, or we don't like them because they're not like us, stuff like that. And the father was saying, he'd be like, well, where'd you get that from?
Right.
We don't hate people just because they believe different things than us. Where'd you get that from? Yeah. So stuff like that and like engaging, because it happens in school as these kids grow up. And it's not just men, but just for the sake of just the topic, there's like some dudes still to this day see being like all dominating, this jack dude with like all these commercially superficial things. It's a bunch of stuff that they've gotten from football lockers and
definitely
like,
or even the superhero
Instagram
movies though. Like it's not even just like it's football, it's sports, and if you notice like times are changing now, and you get to see like, you know, I thought it was amazing seeing The Incredibles. Like the whole family was strong, like the kids were strong. But growing up, you didn't see that. You seen the Hulk, a man strong, like you know, there and not even just strong, but terrorizing and, you know, fighting and killing and stuff like that.
Bell Hooks was talking about how the Incredible Hulk showed a lot of men that it was okay to resort with violence if they were angry.
Right.
So, and she was talking, there was a study about when the Incredible Hulk came out, and they were asking boys what would they do if they were Hulk, and they said they would smash their mommies.
Right. See?
So it became a thing where like masculinity is seen as like you're supposed to be angry, you're supposed to be violent, you're supposed to be dominant, you're supposed to be domineering. But how good is that for your family dynamic? How good is that for your relationship with your family, your child, your brother, your sister, all this? If you feel like you have to constantly uphold this status quo, it's exhausting. And I've seen men just like in passing talking about certain things and just keep living under that, and they're very angry, and I'm like, you don't have to live like that. Like you don't have to be like that or think like that. It's like, especially when I hear dads, they're like, yeah, I don't change a diaper, I don't do none of this stuff, or I don't do that's like, we're because the same thing that makes men think oh yeah, I don't have to change a diaper or stuff like that. That type of gender role ideology is the same thing that tells people that like women are naturally nurturing. It keeps us in these things that are one track, very tunnel vision.
Yeah, I think definitely.
And don't allow room for like any overlap,
Right.
any type of partnership that is.
That's the key right there, because as a family is a unit, like we're partners in this, and I think that's where we lack sometimes as parents, where we forget that we're partnering with our children.
Yeah.
Like we partner with God. Like I think, as a mom, like I'm still learning how to partner with my children, how to, they have their opinions. I listen to them, but sometimes, like honestly, if I get frustrated because I don't like what they're saying, like I'm ready to shut it down. I don't want to talk no more. Like honestly, it's like, listen, especially because again, I had two of them. Well, not even two of them. Like these last three. Ooh, I'm trying to tell y'all, they're so opinionated and they're really smart. And I take a lot of things that they say and it helps me in my parenting. But at sometimes like they can negotiate. Like they some negotiators. Like it should be a movie called Negotiators starring my three children, the three youngest ones. Because I've never seen kids who try to negotiate so much.
I would see that movie.
Like I'm telling you,
I would
like,
see that movie.
because after I said something for a couple of times and I'm like, this, and then you want to keep trying to negotiate this. Now I'm like, this is not a negotiation, and then I'm getting angry. Get out my room. I don't want to talk to you. Like I'm not lying. Like because sometimes, I've been at school all day and I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm trying to have an open conversation with you, right? But then you seeing that it's this, right? For example, the one that touched my gangster, the other day, she came in the room and she said, Mom, can I make me a small pot of Alfredo? And I'm like, no, why would you you want to open the jar, use half of it, put the jar in the refrigerator, right? No, like if you're going to make Alfredo, like how about you make Alfredo? Well, why can't I do it? Well, first of all, let's just get this straight. It's 8:00 at night. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you cooked dinner the day before and there's still some chicken legs in the refrigerator that you didn't cook from there. You seasoned them and everything. Well, yeah. I'm like, so you baked chicken yesterday. I said, so eat what you cooked yesterday. She was like, well, I really wasn't feeling that. You done made a whole meal. She done had mashed potatoes, broccoli, chicken. She's the chef. She done cooked it. It's about 4 chicken legs left that you could cook, right? So that you can, if you ain't like,
you don't even need the Alfredo.
Yeah, like they in the refrigerator. She says, well, what's the difference of me cooking the chicken and me cooking Alfredo? Well, the difference is that one's chicken and one's Alfredo.
And it requires like sauce.
And so you want to open a new jar of Alfredo just for your one meal. So we're going back and I'm trying to explain to her, no, that just doesn't, it doesn't add up. First of all, food costs a lot of money. And the jar, when you open a jar, like it's only a certain, like you can't. Yeah,
you can't just leave it.
You can't just leave it there for a couple days because the air gets to it, then it become molded, stuff like that. So I'm like, first of all, this is 8:00. I'm not explaining you about a molded jar. Like, what we not doing is this. So I'm trying to have a conversation
about like chemicals and
mold
and stuff.
I was like, I had the energy or oxygen enough to break down why you cannot cook this Alfredo tonight.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
She's going back and forth with me, and I'm like, yo, listen, no, we not doing that. Well, why can't it? Listen, now I'm mad now.
I was gonna say, yeah,
now I'm mad because I already explained to you in the nicest way possible, and you keep questioning me. Yeah. So now I'm like, you know what? You don't eat no dinner tonight. I'm saying you had the opportunity to have a nice, good dinner. And first of all, it's 8:00, so you should have already ate dinner anyway. Oh, I was in my room studying. So I forgot and our time went by. And I'm like, no, listen, you eat what's already down there or you don't eat at all. And then, so you're going to let me starve? How?
It's already food down there.
Like, I'm telling you, that negotiation and then try to blame me. I'm like, you started this fire and you mad that it's going to blaze. This is the problem.
I see what you mean by like Tessie in the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like,
because after a long day of work, I would just, all I would say is because I said so. I would have to throw one of those out there.
And I did.
Because I said so. After a long day, 8 p.m. At that point, I
just want to take a shower. I want to relax.
But that's the thing. That's the context of the a lot of kids, and I was saying it's not like, I have a full-time job, but it's I don't know. I never, and that's another thing, work never seemed like it validated my manhood. Like I never was like, oh yeah, I work, it makes me a real man. Like that's not, the whole provider thing. You provide because you want to support your family.
Right.
It
You
isn't.
want to
It
support.
isn't like to extort your manhood. It's not. You're not playing Uncle Sam and like using your power, but it's like this understanding that like working, it definitely like changes energy, and when you get home, and it's definitely probably very hard to to explain to a kid, because I didn't really understand it until I like went through a couple weeks, couple months, and I was like, yeah, this is
like,
because like I was talking to dudes who was 22 with like a 3-year-old, and I'm like, oh nah, bro.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
He's like, hey, bro, you got any kids?
No.
Listen,
I do not, because I
Listen.
want to plan and like be very like there's a certain way that I want to like, and back to the FD Signified podcast, like the dude in there, he was talking about the way he engages his children is because he's trying to raise thinkers,
right.
and I want to do that the same way as well, like.
Yeah, raising
Inspiring
thinkers mean they thinking all the time. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get what I get. Like that's me.
I
I
like that,
aspire to raise thinkers until I'm tired.
Like I didn't grow up with like my siblings in the house, or so it was, and they were older than me. So and like not having a dog, so it was just me and music, instruments, and books, and and so I'm gonna be laughing. Because I know kids don't have a lot of like, they're not like intellectuals at 9 or like 15 or something like that.
They are. So I have some of the best conversations with my kids. Like they really provoke me to think and everything.
might, actually.
But I think they use that against me sometimes because I'm so open and you can say anything now. And they're not disrespectful.
just try to
Sometimes,
use it to
but at the same time, it's just like, yo, enough is enough. Like, it's like I feel like there's such a line in parenting, right? It's like sometimes you too far over this way, too far to the left, too far for the right. It's like you just want to kind of have it balanced, but it's really situational because just what you're dealing with in life and what they're dealing in life, and I always try to make sure that I don't take out what I'm dealing with on them, but at the same time, I'm not a punk either. Like you're not gonna be punking me, and I feel like sometimes my kids think that I'm a punk, and I have to keep reminding them that I lived in Chester, PA. Do you understand? Like they don't, y'all growing up where y'all growing up, but y'all don't really realize that I can get it. And because with my parenting, because how I was parented, we always. A lot of parents say, I'm not going to raise my kids that way. I'm not going to do this. And what happens is sometimes we overdo it and sometimes we underdo it. It's like, it's very hard to have a balance because you want your kids to have the best of the best, but then you also want them to have challenges too so that they can build, because those challenges is what built me. I don't want them to be hurt, but that's part of life. And we can't shelter our kids from everything. But at the same time, I was in school today, right? Today, and a couple of moms was in there talking about what they got their kids for their birthday. And the stuff that these kids get for birthdays now, and it's like
crazy.
At 13 and 15 and 16 years old, like Balenciagas and like
the
all
clothes
that
that
stuff.
they wear nowadays, it's like wow.
I was wearing a Minecraft t-shirt.
I had like Vans
so
on.
the parents, the moms was in there
Vans
complaining,
was
right?
pretty good.
The moms was complaining. They was like, they spoiled. So I'm listening to the conversation, right? And you're telling me all this stuff that you did for your daughter's birthday. It wasn't just one. It was a couple parents. So finally, my professor was like, well, let me ask you a question. Who did all that? Oh, you brought it? Oh, you did that? Oh, so you blaming them for being spoiled when you're purchasing?
You're spoiling them,
You're doing the work, and it was mentioned. Well, I want my kids to have more than I have, and somebody else said, well, why? Why? Why?
That's what you were just talking about, like being like. Parenting is like trying to find this balance. There's a notion, concept that I read in Thich Nhat Hanh's book called No Death, No Fear. Thich Nhat Hanh is a old Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and I picked up No Death, No Fear to like help with grieving, and it's helped a lot. But it just introducing me to a couple concepts in Buddhism, one of the things was impermanence, and the fact that like we're ever changing, like the clouds are not the same clouds from the day before, the water in the riverbank is not the same that it was an hour ago. So that's kind of how we should engage each other, you know, like understanding that like stuff just we are
Flexible.
ever.
I think we got to be really flexible with each other. Like, definitely. I think, like you said, when we have this idea of like restriction and just this one way of thinking, like this tunnel vision, it really deprives our children, even ourselves, of really living our best life. Like it creates a lot of stress and anxiety to try to fulfill or meet an expectation that you're not even meeting yourself. And I feel like as a parent, like I constantly have put expectations on my kids where they don't have the capacity to even fulfill them. But the expectations was because it was really because I felt like this is what I wanted, based on how I lived in my past, and how much work I've done to try to make sure that they're successful, but not really understanding, like, listen, they don't want to do that.
Everybody has different like strengths and weaknesses. So it's like you may tip them too far this way, tip them too far that way, just trying to like that, you know, you do want the best for your children, but there's different ways to go about it. That's probably the best thing to say. I think, like you were saying, like figuring out how you were raised and like the things you wanted to do and like how you didn't want them to go through what you had to go through. Yeah, so in the lessons that you've learned from like, you know, your upbringing, like I know one of the things that helped me and my mom was just like looking, because a lot of times parents, they will like kind of raise your child the same way that you were raised. So when I would have stuff that was bothering me and I would talk to her about those things and she would feel the same way, it would be, you understand more that like you didn't have to be authoritative, because a lot of times children just want to be connected. It is not like most kids aren't defiant just naturally. They may be a little mischievous, getting to something, but I don't know, like especially like how stuff is interacted with teaching. Like I saw this video, little kids like on his little what's it called, 2-wheel, 1-wheel, whatever it's called, play wheel, and they're like on the table, and the dad's like, "Hey, you gonna fall? You gonna hurt yourself?" Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm warning you. Fell off. And he's like moving forward, and he's like, I told you already. I warned you." And he fell, and he starts crying. He was like, I told you, but you're gonna be okay. and that's the thing, because it's like it's not gonna kill him.
Right, and that's the difference between a male and a female, a father and a mother, because the mother is gonna go over there,
gonna dive and
dive and catch up, and we like we gonna tell you one time, and then we see that you're still doing it. Oh, we coming up there scooping you up. You're not even gonna be on this bike anymore because I don't want you to hurt yourself. But not realizing that you learn through experience, and we as mothers, like we really try to shelter our kids so they don't have to have certain experiences. And I've noticed fathers is like, listen, you need that boy needs that, or that girl needs that experience, but because the way that we are as mothers, like that, I mean, we push them out. Like, listen, I don't want nothing to happen to my baby. I don't want nothing to happen to my baby. And realizing that it's really doing a disservice when we don't allow our children to be able to experience life. Like I don't want my kids just to be here existing. I want them to experience life, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where we like went around near the end of the last episode that we was on with too. Like I talked about like kind of not specifically like letting them fail, but kind of like, you know, letting them get that experience on their own and kind of failing on their own type of thing, rather. Because my mom, she would, every time I try to do something new, she would just automatically hit me with the most pessimistic answer possible. Like if I say, "Oh, I want to go to this hotel," she's like, "Well, don't go there because what if somebody starts shooting?" I'm like, what if somebody doesn't? What if, can I just go and find out on my own if something's gonna happen? You know, stuff like that. So it's like,
it's like that protective, but it's almost like that,
but it's like
that.
It's fear.
It's like that.
It's
fear.
It is really, a lot of us parents are, because I mean, look at the world though.
For sure.
A lot of us are parenting out of fear,
it's
but
definitely
I think
crazy out here.
But also, I feel like if you are instilling your child certain things, certain disciplines, like I'm like, even with saying stuff like that,
Yeah, like
I
we
know to
wouldn't-
keep my head on
Yeah,
the
we would
swivel,
we
like,
wouldn't put ourselves in a
it's-
situation. We
yeah,
raised
if
to
I-
a point where we
yeah,
wouldn't try to put
I-
ourselves in that type of
if it's
situation.
even
Anyways,
remotely,
yeah.
could be something. But that's what some people get into those places because it's like a connection thing. Those are just their
Yeah.
family members and just their friends, their peers. But you, like you said, it's about really being enriching and really making sure, like, everybody, like you said, everybody wants the best for their children, and it's important that if we can instill in them to kind of figure out the world too, like
Right.
what to look for in the world. You don't have to necessarily say, yeah, it has to be like this, but like just give them tools and resources so they can start to become more more attuned to those things, like we do with words.
I think that's good. Like that's one, and I think that's where, because we don't have a part 3, you know that. But I really think I like that point of view about really giving them the tools to be able to think for themselves, to be able to be useful, to be able to figure out things. I think that's so long that I don't know, this helicopter parenting or just being so out of fear. We just want so much for our kids, but really in reality, we just don't want our kids to screw up and then somebody look at us and say, well, we do wrong.
Yeah,
That's
that's-
right.
and
No one
I hear
really
that a
looks
lot.
at like
Yeah,
that
definitely hear
notion of
So
when people are saying like what's best for my kid. Nobody looks
Yeah.
at like what that really means.
what it really means, what's best for my kids, not what's best for me, but what's best for our kids. I think that's where we're going to pick up on the 3rd episode, really getting into the emotional part of it, right? The investment of what it takes, what tools can we invest in ourselves and our children so that they can be successful and they can be feeling free and not restricted. I mean, everybody needs a little bit of a fence or a gate around them, but however, a gate is not necessarily meant just to keep things out. What happens is with a gate, it keeps us in as well. But we need to be able to flourish and grow to the best of person that God created us to be. So I'm excited to having that conversation on the next show, because once we get in here, we just get to going. And it's such a great engaging conversation though, because a lot of times we don't hear the perspective from young men. We really don't. A lot of times there's a notion that girls talk a lot, but boys don't really say anything. As you know, this is our second show, so it happens, right? We be talking in here. So thank you guys for joining Parenting with a Purpose. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Savion, for coming on the show again and just talking about how we can be more engaged with our children, how we can emotionally invest in our children so that our children can be able to even express their emotions and not feel sad, not feel that that it's a bad thing for you to be in touch with your inner self, so that you can be the best. So join us again, Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janelle, where I strive back to bring the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. We know it's hard, but it's still beautiful at the same time. Pain and love and growth and all that kind of is around the same thing, stretching. And as you know, children out here testing our inner gangster, but we gonna win, parents. We will win.